So my name is Nafiz Zaman Shuvo, and I teach in the Faculty of Information Media Studies at Western University. I mostly teach some courses in library and information science. So for today's presentation, um, my plan is to share some of the core findings on the information behavior of Bangladeshi immigrants in Canada, which was part of my doctoral study that I completed in 2020, April 2020. And I believe I am confident that by the end of this presentation, you'll understand that the information behavior of immigrants, it's very complex and culturally situated. And also this presentation would also highlight the importance of using complex theory or using the lens of complex theory to better understand this culturally situated complex information behavior so that we can serve them better, so that we have better services for them in both pre and post-arrival context. So I'll just begin with today's agenda. So I know many of you are attending from not from LIS, Library and Information Science, and probably not heard the term in human information behavior. So I'll just briefly define it in the context of my study. Then I'll talk about the doctoral study, the research methods for my doctoral study, briefly show some of the key demographics, and then focus on the findings, which is going to highlight the complex and culturally situated information behavior in the context of settlement. So I'm focusing more on the settlement information behavior for Bangladeshi immigrants. And then in conclusion, I will also briefly show the complexity, which would hopefully be useful for future LIS researchers who will be working on migrants information behavior, not only just migrants information behavior, but human information behavior. So starting with the human information behavior. So when we talk about that, we usually mean how people seek, use, share, and experience information in various contexts. So in my study context, it's settlement. So how you seek information, the need for information, the how you share information, and how you experience. Sometimes what happens when we attend some programs, we tend to get information. So even though we did not actively search, look for information, we do receive information. And that would be considered as part of your information experience. And human information behavior, I personally think it's very complex and dynamic. So it changes. If you look, think about your information behavior in early, before internet, and your information behavior after you started using internet quite regularly. Your information behavior in one context and your information behavior in other context, you will understand that the complexity, the change, the approaches you take, you took, for example, in 2015, now in 2022. So those kind of things would be really useful if we apply that complex theory lens. So this is a visual representation of my research method. So this was a mixed method study. I conducted a semi-structured interview with 60 Bangladeshi immigrants in Ontario. And then after that interview, I also conducted surveys, mostly online surveys, and I received 205 completed responses. I also utilized various approaches to really spread the word about my doctoral study, to really reach kind of large number of respondents so that I can better understand their information behavior in their settlement context. So the demographics, I'll just briefly show the key demographics for this study for interviews and surveys, starting with interviews. As you can see, majority of them are male, which is 63%. In terms of their immigration status, most of them were skilled immigrants and their dependents. So we know, and especially in Canadian context, a large number of, so far for the last 10 years, mostly majority of them are skilled immigrants and their dependents, but we also do receive refugees. We also do receive family-sponsored immigrants, and certainly the temporary residents like international students. So in terms of education, as you can see, most of them had university degrees. So 96% of them had university degrees before moving to Canada, not after moving. They had university degrees before moving to Canada. In terms of survey, very similar demographics. 61% of them were male. In terms of immigration status, again, skilled immigrants and their dependents. I also had some family class immigrants for surveys. And then again, in terms of educational background at the time of interview, the survey, they indicated that over 90% of them indicated that they had university degrees before moving to Canada. So the findings, the empirical findings, on this core findings on the information experience, information seeking, sharing fear, and information intelligence, I thought this would be very useful in the context of this conference. And this finding would also show the culturally situated, the complex information behavior, which is very dynamic, which is very hard to predict, which is very hard to even model. And I would also say that my study is focusing on the skilled immigrants, Bangladeshi skilled immigrants. So if I do the same thing, ask the same questions with family-sponsored immigrants, there is high chance their information behavior would be different. The challenges they face would be different. But what we see in the literature, sometimes we tend to focus, we tend to generalize the findings with just doing a study on a smaller group. And then sometimes we think, okay, for example, friends and family networks, those are really useful for immigrants. Yes, they are useful for immigrants in terms of their initial settlement. For example, they can help opening a bank account, they can help with the temporary accommodation, they can help with other settlement issues, but then they may not be useful if immigrants are more focused on finding professional jobs. So those kind of things we'll see as part of this presentation. So before I do that, I thought I just shared the information needs, the pre-arrival. So when before they move to Canada, the information need in terms of their importance, many of the top 5 information need would be their education, information related to their education, like whether they need to pursue education or not, information about things to do after arrival. It could be related to banking information, it could be related to finding accommodation, mental preparedness information, employment information, and child education. And there are other information too. So when it comes to post-arrival, it was clear that employment information was the top information need in terms of the importance, and which has the justification, because given my participants were mostly skilled immigrants and their dependents with university degrees, naturally, when skilled immigrants move to Canada or any other countries, they really tend to focus on finding professional jobs. So they look for information, employment related information. They consult a variety of diverse sources to really gather that information, and not being able to professionally successful in their host country has really some mental health complications. So those kind of things, those understanding, the sources they use, the information they look for, the services that is available, and the interactions with the government agencies would be really useful to better serve this group. I also, I think it's important to note that you probably noticed that pre-arrival and post-arrival, both cases among the top 5 information needs, child education was one of them. And one of the main reasons where over 80% of my participants, when they moved, they actually moved with their families and they had kids. So naturally, family, they were also looking for information for their children. So settlement information sources, these are just the top 4. And I wanted to show this to really highlight that still in this age of so-called, we always say that it's the age of internet, although uh, a large number of people in developing countries, they still do not have access to the internet. So still people tend to focus, people consult their informal information sources, for example, friends and family networks, community people. And this is present throughout their, from pre-arrival to post-arrival, even for their first job information. The reason I wanted to show this is that in the next few slides, the presentation related to information experience, information sharing fear, those are those will be really focusing on or that although we think that having connections, having access to friends and family networks would be useful, and we tend to generalize that people having friends and family networks have better settlement experience. But when it comes to employment, when it comes to making informed decisions about your move to a new country, when it comes to really gathering comprehensive understanding of the settlement challenges you may face moving to a specific country, friends and family networks, that information source may not be useful or may sometimes be even harmful. So starting with the information experience, by information experience, because reading through the interviews, um, it was clear that participants had, when they interacted with their community, friends and family networks and ethnic community people, they had both mixed positive and negative information experience. So by information experience, I mean the active and passive interactions with informal information sources, settlement information sources such as friends and family networks, and also certainly ethnic community people, and the consequences of that. So the information you received and the consequences of that. For example, so I divided this information experience into 2. So positive information experience and negative information experience. So when I said positive information experience, I actually mean immigrants receiving positive information about their settlement in Canada. And in many cases, it's in pre-arrival context. So when they should kind of make an informed decision whether it would be great to move, what is their expectation, what challenges they may face. So if they consult their friends and family networks, and if they just receive positive information about Canada, everything is great, you just need to move and things would be great, everything will be taken care of. Those kind of positive information really, it's harmful in a sense that they would not be able to prepare for their life in Canada. And once they move, when they will start facing challenges, finding a childcare spot, facing challenges, finding a professional job, then there will be huge mismatch between their expectation and then the reality. So although positive information may seem great, oh, that's great, people getting positive information, but those information may not be useful really. And then this is also, it was also evident in my study that people, those who had better settlement experience, they tend to share, although they also face challenges, they tend to share positive information with their friends and family networks who are interested to move to Canada. And that also means, like, if you have if you just consult information from one particular sources, there is high chance you'll not be able to make a comprehensive informed decisions about their move, will not be able to prepare for your move. And then negative information experience, by again, negative information experience, I mean people sharing negative information about your life in Canada, especially your prospects of getting professional jobs. What happened, I noticed that also being part of many community networks in Canada, that attending several cultural programs and events, that sometimes if you had a better job back home, so-called, like you're director of a hospital, you're a professor, those kind of thing, then once you move immediately, some friends and family networks and ethnic community people, they may really discourage you by saying you made a great mistake. This is because you had a better life, you had a better job, and you're now going to face a lot of issues. Doctors and engineers are having issues and all those kind of thing. So those kind of demotivating information may really be harmful for newcomers settlement, for newcomers like those who are interested to be settling in Canada, getting a professional job. So those kind of discouraging information, demotivating information, has they have really some implications for your settlement, for newcomer settlement in a new society. So, for example, Anna, she had to say that her way of information seeking, the way she sought information from those who were not successful actually in Canada, she realized later, once she started using, interacting with the settlement agencies, gathering comprehensive information, that her initial information seeking was completely wrong, because she mostly gathered negative information, which because of that, she was not able to make the informed decisions, and was not able to find out, had issues finding out the resources that would be useful for her to settle into Canadian society, getting a professional job. And so just positive or just negative may really be harmful, may really be not useful in terms of your settlement. And but having that both mixed information, like, yeah, there are some benefits in moving to Canada in terms of child education, in terms of if you want to pursue education, all those kind of thing, in terms of health, in terms of retirement benefits, everything is there. But you have to prepare yourself. You have to do some bridging program. You have to do some take some education, all those kind of thing. Those kind of comprehensive information may be useful, and in many cases, you may not get that from newcomers, may not get that from their friends and family networks and ethnic community people, which is also evident in my study, which I considered this as the concept I'll call that as information sharing fear, because what was evident in my study, and also I regularly interacting with my community people, ethnic community people, I see that they have that fear of losing relationship if you share the challenges newcomers face initially, the things you need to do to better settle into Canadian society. So this is an example of information sharing fear, that because back home, those who are interested in moving to Canada, they mostly think, naturally, certainly there is no doubt about that, Canada is much better in terms of education, in terms of health system, in terms of insurance and everything. But when you compare Canada with Bangladesh, those who were in Bangladesh, they kind of think that they're working as a director for 10 years, so they will be able to move to Canada and get the similar position immediately. Those kind of things are really it is harmful. It is not really going to help them settle into Canadian society properly, instead of understanding the challenges they may face, understanding the things they need to do. So, and then the information sharing fear, when you consult your friends and family networks, And if they don't share, because if they say, hey, you have to face a lot of challenges, think twice. We know some of them moved and then again they return. Some of them just left their family. They return home, all those kind of thing. So those information sharing fear is really kind of not allowing the newcomers' friends and family network to share the actual challenges they may face to help them make informed decisions. Because of the information sharing fear, again, connected with the information experience and the general that the perceptions that having friends and family networks would be useful with your settlement, again, in terms of making informed decisions about the settlement challenges you may face, making informed decisions about the things you need to do may not be useful. That's one of the, I would say, interesting findings. That's one of the culturally situated finding, that people have that fear that if I tell them the real story, I may not have better relationship afterward, because and that's what some of my participants said, that they were telling their friends about the challenges they may face initially, who had really better job and better money and all those kind of things, but wanted to move with their kids, and then later blaming them, or because of your information I didn't move, you really discourage, all those kind of thing. And then that participants, she actually stopped sharing any information. So if you want to move, you move. Yeah, you decide, you Google it and all those kind of thing. So, and this is another example that really highlight the information sharing fear among immigrants in Canada, especially when it comes to helping them with information about the settlement challenges they may face, helping them inform decisions about the Canadian life, especially those seeking information, those who are not in Canada yet. So those seeking information from friends and family networks in Canada may not really get a complete picture of the settlement challenges they may face. And then information intelligence, this is another one that would also challenge, this also challenge the general assumptions that immigrants, and we always see that immigrants are portrayed as very vulnerable in terms of access to information, in terms of English language proficiency, in terms of education. But if you look at the recent demographics of the demographics that we after the introduction of express entry in 2015, you have to have really high English language proficiency. You have to have university degrees. You have to be younger if you want to really move to Canada through the express entry. So, and then this also means that we are getting more, in a sense, those who are able to quickly, we can expect that we'll be able to quickly settle into Canadian society. We'll be able to, we'll have much better settlement experience, which may not be always the case. But with that information intelligence, what I found that some of them, they were really great in terms of their information seeking and pre and post-arrival context compared to the other groups I interviewed, compared to the other groups I surveyed. And they really indicated their comprehensive information seeking using different sources, from ethnic community forums to the general forums, to contacting those who were there, to contacting the settlement agencies even before they arrive, their move to Canada, so in pre-arrival context. So those group, I would consider, I considered them information intelligence. They were really great in terms of their information seeking, the way they kind of utilize the services, the way they interacted with the settlement agencies, the way they gathered information. So this group is not vulnerable in terms of information seeking. They used all their opportunities to gather information about their move. Even some of them actually visited Canada for just 2 weeks to understand, to see the country, and later decided they will move to talk to their family members here and to see by themselves. And then again, Shajul and others, they really indicated the, I would say, the comprehensive, their information seeking was very comprehensive. They, the way they didn't limit their information seeking to only just consulting just information sources, that just friends and family networks. So this group, I believe that in the near future will have more information intelligence, those who will be really, I would say, expert information seekers, information searchers, and their information, set of information behavior would be different than other vulnerable groups. For example, sponsored family immigrants, or those refugees who really, because of the forced migration, they were not prepared to move, but they had to move. So that would be, their information seeking would be different. So the things I hope that I clearly indicated here, it's that the information behavior, the migrants' information behavior, I considered it as a complex and culturally situated. So through the lens of this complex theory and system thinking, we would have much better understanding of that unpredictable nature of their information behavior. As I mentioned earlier, that this group was skilled immigrants and their dependents. Still, it is hard to really model. You cannot really model it, that skilled immigrants coming from Bangladesh, they look for that, they will do that, they will do that. So in terms of, yeah, some of the aspects like naturally, that will happen naturally, which is like skilled immigrants and their dependents would be looking for employment information. But the way the approaches they will take, it's different, it's unpredictable. The way they interact, it's really hard. So through I find this complex theory, if we can use that, the application of that especially in my field, we'd have much better understanding of the interactions among different groups, of the dynamic nature of this information behavior. Because as I mentioned, like people with vulnerable, in a sense, refugees may have quite different information seeking, settlement information seeking, that skilled immigrants and their dependents with university education who had kind of decided that they will move and they have some information. And then that especially when we all know that the immigrants face challenges. This is well evident, especially with the employment and also like getting really professional jobs, especially doctors, engineers. In terms of healthcare, I always read news articles about the frustration, the depressions among healthcare professionals, internationally trained healthcare professionals, because not being able to practice in Canada. It's also because of the complex system, the way the system accepts, compared to computer professionals, those who, so far what I found, they tend to do better in terms of getting a professional job compared to health professionals. So those kind of things. So interventions, for example, having really comprehensive pre-arrival information services may really significant effect on how people make informed decisions. Having that services may really have significant impact on how on their settlement, on their overall settlement into Canadian society. So those kind of thing, as I mentioned, that I just started exploring this complex theory, and I find this gives you the flexibility, and this really encourages you to try to comprehensively understand the non-linearity, the interactions among different subsets, the different groups, and would be very useful in my, especially in my field, because it's not widely used. We do use that, we do agree that many things are complex, many systems are complex, but we don't really use this theoretical lens when it comes to really comprehensively understanding the complex and kind of culturally situated information behavior. So I think I would just stop here given the time, and I'm happy to respond to any questions